Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's live stream. I'm Tammy DaCosta with CoinW. Now, today it's the last day of January, the first month of the year, and it's been a big one. Throughout the crypto environment, we've seen a lot of volatility, a lot of changes, and this has definitely altered the trajectory for cryptocurrency as a whole. So we're going to look through my presentation's still trying to load, but basically we're just going to recap on the month of Jan and then going to look at some of the key moments that have defined the crypto industry, as well as what we can expect in terms of price action. Now, first, what I'm going to do is, let me just share my screen and we can look at what's happening at the moment, and then we'll switch to the presentation. If we look on the CoinW site at the moment and we go to futures, we can see over the past 24 hours, it's not looking too bad. We see Bitcoin prices slightly below the 105,000 mark. And then we see Ethereum actually getting a tick up, which has been nice because Ethereum hasn't really had the same boost in sentiment as the rest of the crypto industry, especially this month. So we can see Ethereum is up, Litecoin slightly lower, and then you can see optimism. Well, pretty much it's looking quite optimistic today. And if we go down the line, we can see there is positivity. So it's been a nice start to the day, even though we see Bitcoin pulling off a little bit below 105,000. Prices have actually handled everything, especially in terms of geopolitics and fundamentals. Prices have actually handled it really, really well. Even though we have seen some big drawdowns, I think given the current environment as a whole, we need to actually commend crypto prices, or a lot of them, on, kind of withstanding all those fundamentals, even though there's positives and negatives, and we see technicals come into play into things quite nicely in recent price action. So if we look, futures are looking quite nice. If we go to Banter Bubbles, now let's have a look there. So once again, green across the screen, and so everything is, well, not across the screen, but compared to the other day, it's looking pretty good. So this is the monthly view. If we go to the weekly view, okay, weekly, not so nice. But today, we can see today's good. All right, so if we just look at what's happened, we can look at, let's go look at stocks as well, because we're going to touch on that. And then we can see NVIDIA, we can see, so these are a lot of the big stocks that we were looking at. Well, these are basically the top stocks I was looking at this week and as a whole, because it follows closely with the whole tech environment at the moment and the AI theme. So this is my list, and we can see Apple had earnings. Yesterday, we had Microsoft also reporting earnings earlier this week. Microsoft has had quite a hectic week, but we can see the whole vibe with crypto and with regards to the earnings and tech space today is actually pretty optimistic. And we have had quite a rocky week. So we'll look at that. Let's go look at, let's just go look at the general, right? And then, perfect. Let me share my presentation and then we will go back to the charts. Okay, so as we end the month, as I said, this week we've had quite a lot of data information or information overload, but I think this month has obviously been crucial for cryptocurrency. and we've had a lot of milestones, especially with coming, to the Trump inauguration. So let's go dive into that, and then after that we'll look at charts and some price action, and I'll share some of my views. Okay, there we go. So this week, what we had on the economic front is not only did we have big tech earnings, but we also had the Federal Reserve, the interest rate decision, where they held interest rates steady. We've obviously this month, we've had the crypto executive order. So now cryptocurrency is going to be part of the United States. They want to build a strategic reserve. So we see a lot of optimism around there. Now, if we look overall, as I said, if we look at the monthly move and we just take a look across the screen, we can see that Bitcoin's obviously really, really gained from this whole shift in the transition of power, but Ethereum has actually lagged a bit. Okay, Ripple, we can see has done really, really well, also outperformer. And this comes in once again with those changes in the regulatory framework under the new presidency. So what I want to touch on today is let's look at firstly the crypto market cap. Okay, so currently the crypto market cap, and this is CoinMarketCap. That's where I got this information. And it's sitting at 3.55 trillion. Okay, and then we can see on the 20th of Jan, it reached the market cap, basically reached a high of 3.73 trillion. So we can obviously see now that market cap is rising. And when we look at the charts and we look at where it was before the presidency, you'll see why it actually matters. Okay, next one, crypto ETFs net flow. Okay, now this is basically the amount of funds going into crypto ETFs. You need to remember that ETFs are relatively new. So we've had the approval of the Bitcoin ETFs last year, and then we also had the Ethereum, and now we've got a whole lot that are now lined up. What is an ETF? It's an exchange traded fund. So this means that instead of actually taking or owning Bitcoin, what can happen is now people like BlackRock, which are large institutions, hedge funds, and so forth, they can now start adding it as part of their portfolio to offer clients. This brings in a huge amount of institutional adoption, but it also changes because now that there's assets under management and we're offering it in portfolios like pension funds, retirement annuities. It's a big deal. And it's a big deal because now we're basically giving crypto that credibility that it has lacked for so long. And we all see that filtering now into the prices. So we can see crypto flows have been really, really good throughout January. We did see a bit of a pullback, and this was basically 27th of Jan when we saw, okay, that was on Monday when we had the whole tech sell-off and the whole DeepSeek debacle. So that was obviously also coming into play. But as a whole, we can see crypto ETFs net flows, which is the big money, that's been increasing. And at the moment, actually 6% of Bitcoin's, well, when I looked, of Bitcoin's market cap is made up of the ETFs. And I stand to be corrected. With Ethereum, it was a lot lower. I think it was about 2.6%. I will get that exact number now. Now, if we look at the monthly gainers, we've got the Onyx coin, Trump, XDC, Radium, so forth. Okay. And what we can see, I've just basically, so this is just a simple overview. Once again, when we go to TradingView, we can see more information. We see the prices and then, okay, 30-day % gain. So this is obviously just monthly gain. And this was when I was looking at it, so it could actually be different. So we see the price there. So something like Onyx Coin has gained approximately 1,484%, okay, this month. And then we see the Trump coin, XDC, and so forth. And then we see the different categories. Ooh, this didn't come out nicely. Sorry. But we see the different categories. So when we see different categories, this is basically the purpose of the actual coin or, of the token. So when we see something like the meme coin, so if you don't know, Trump launched an official meme coin the day before his inauguration, and it completely exploded. Now, my thing, okay, this is a bit of a personal, not a vendetta, but the Trump that we're seeing today is very different to the Trump that we saw in his first term as presidency. If you remember, that Trump was very, very against cryptocurrency. And if you remember when crypto started getting institutionalized, or when there was that adoption and prices rallied in 2017, one of the major drawbacks was those orders that Trump basically put into place to say that he was against, cryptocurrency. Another thing he was against was social media. Now we see a complete shift in tone. And we need to, if you look at his inauguration, who was there? It was big tech. It was, Elon Musk is his right-hand man. You had, basically Sam Altman. So basically OpenAI was represented, Facebook, Instagram. So, you had those big tech that were represented. Who else was represented? People like, basically crypto exchanges also were a huge part of Trump's funding. And so that's going to be a very big plus for him, because now throughout his campaign, that's pretty much, if it wasn't for those private investors, Trump wouldn't have been able to actually raise the funding to basically get a second term in presidency. So they are going to once again, and this has been really, really beneficial for crypto, because now not only do we have that developmental, like that adoption for AI and for tech, we now need the blockchain. Because if we're wanting, and the whole blockchain is also, it's not about coins, it's about technology, it's about the future. It's about having that digital trace, because now everything is digital. So there's obviously all those factors that come into play, but we can definitely see who those big gainers have been. Now, XRP is Ripple, also Enterprise Solutions. So they actually a blockchain that had a lot of scrutiny and basically turmoil with the Securities Exchange Commission. Obviously, now there's a change in cabinet. There was now that crypto executive order, basically making a cabinet to say, okay, there is a place for this, and now we need to have the right people to manage these tasks. So now it's not just something like Bitcoin, which is peer-to-peer. Now we've got smart contracts, we've got decentralized finance, we've got blockchains that are being developed to suit the current technology changes in AI and basically, the adoption to the modern day. So this is definitely, these ones have benefited. Then we've got the monthly losers. Now, even though these are monthly losers, and we can see that, okay, Pengu, Virtual, Pepe, they're down quite a bit, we have to also bear in mind the price action, or basically how they were performing in the build up to these events. So the whole Trump hype has been happening since November. So obviously it's filtered through, and some of these are just like corrections. So we can't just judge this as is, but it's also just to show you, the different categories. No longer are we really seeing just the layer ones performing, which were the initial blockchains. But now we're seeing those different categories that are also now coming into play and that have different functionality to the original blockchain. And that's exciting, but it's also daunting. You've got so many coins. Where do you actually invest? How do you diversify? And what are the risks? Because modern day, we've got so many risks, and especially with regards to digital. It's been really a blessing, but it could also be a curse. So these are the things that I'm also watching as to see which ones or which categories are actually going to be up and coming, as well as obviously what happens with those institutions. Okay. Now, if we look at upcoming events, and this was from Binance, if we see here, and okay, this was through January, so obviously this has now happened. But what I want to show you is we've got a lot of summits, Bitcoin, Medellin Conference, Naples, Web3 Hub, Davos. So Davos was the World Economic Forum, and that was basically, this was held the same time as the inauguration. So at both those events, we saw a lot of, basically, we saw a lot of comments around the current developments, especially in the United States, and with regards to that adoption of cryptocurrency and so forth. But this has been good in the sense that now that the US is so, basically not well fixated, but now that they're opening their arms to the deregulations of crypto and they're making it easier for institutions and retailers to invest, we have seen something like Kraken basically now able to offer, its holdings to US citizens again. That's a huge win. So we see a lot of those inflows once again coming in to crypto, and that are expected to continue. Okay, now if we look at, so this is from Bloomberg. This was a while back, and where I was getting like the major moves. Okay, and if we see here, so basically, so from 2010 to 2013, we see SEC plays a major role in a lot of these, okay? Or basically the regulatory. So we saw prices rise. So this was when Bitcoin was first brought in. So we saw basically astronomical increases, but every time, let's see what happened. Okay, initial coin offerings, major financial institutions begin crypto and blockchain projects. Okay, now this is 2015 to 2017. Prices rise 11,613%. And then, can crypto grow beyond niche users and reduce volatility? What period is this? Okay, fell 84%. This was under Trump. Okay, and then large amounts of capital flowing into crypto, number of people owning and trading explodes. So once again, this was now PayPal and this institutional basically interest in crypto, and this ties in as well with the COVID pandemic and so forth. And then what happens here? Once again, can crypto make peace with regulators? So every time it was regulations that were basically hindering the success of Bitcoin. And this was my perception, or basically from the beginning, I was skeptical because of the fact that it was so, if nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is, okay, although I've got my own theories around that, but basically then who owns the concept of Bitcoin and of blockchain? And in the end, if it's decentralized, how is that? Then you've got tax evasion, you've got central banks wanting money. It just poses a lot of questions. And now we've kind of got a temporary solution, or we've got an answer to those questions to say, okay, actually, it's going to be a part of our financial system of the future of finance. Everyone actually needs to make a plan, get on board, and put regulations in place. So that's pretty much where we at the moment. Okay. So when we look at Bitcoin, in my opinion, that's what's been, basically keeping those prices at the levels that we've seen. Now, let me share my screen again, and let's go to the charts. Let's first go here. Okay, so once again, this is CoinMarketCap. We can see that we've got a lot of information that we didn't have before, especially now if we go to, let's just see. Well, no, let's go to. So especially when we go to things like Bitcoin and the futures market. Now, the thing with the futures market is if you're trading something like spot crypto or spot, let me just go into the chart and then I'll show you. So if you trade in the spot contract, there's a difference between the spot and the futures. So for example, okay, this is, I'm showing you Ethereum. Let me stick to Ethereum now. Okay, there's futures. Let me use Coinbase as a reference. So if we go to the weekly chart for Coinbase, or at the moment, let me just, there we go. So if we go to Coinbase, for example, and we look at the weekly chart, okay, we can see this information is basically from Coinbase exchange. So this is the volume as per Coinbase's exchange, okay, if that makes sense. If we go to the futures market, this is now what's trading on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which is a commodities exchange. The difference is this is now part of, it's basically the US, it's a real exchange, and this gives us information to things like options, so we can see different expiries of the options. Yeah. And this gives us important insights, especially when we trying to look at, the who's holding the institutional clients and the amount of smart money that's actually going into Bitcoin and, those, and Ethereum. Sorry, that was supposed to be Ethereum. So there is definitely advantages of futures exchanges. As I said, the difference is as well, that is regulated now. So that is, it's, you can see what happens on those exchanges. So it's a lot safer, or, it's less risky than it was before. When we had the whole collapse of FTX and all of that in late 2021, 2022, which also led or resulted in those steep sell-offs in prices, what happened was it was the trust, or when we saw the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, what was it? It was the trust that now, we have those trust issues once again as to be like, what is the actual value, and now what protection do we have against it? So now, up until now, we haven't really had that protection. My concern is, or not really my concern, But to me is now, if a bank or a major hedge fund goes bust, a lot of these crypto assets are bound to be part of the portfolio. So what happens now, and we're going to have to see how policies change, but these whole policy shifts are definitely going to change the dynamic of crypto, as well as the acceptance into society. And I do believe that we'll get to a point where it's going to be part of our everyday lives in one aspect or another. Okay, so if we go to, now let me go to my proper charts. I think I'll have to reshare my screen. And we'll just walk through this quick and then we'll wrap up. So now if we go to Ethereum and we're looking at price action, so I was looking earlier this week at basically some price gaps that have occurred. And because this is futures, I like using this because it shows the weekend, because, you know, the normal one, say now we went to that Coinbase one, we would be able to see the weekend trading. This one doesn't show it, but I like using it because I see the shifts from a weekly perspective. So we can see this week we had a lot of economic events happening as well, and we'll have a look at that. But if we saw from price action for Ethereum, we saw this price gap down, and this was in August. Now, this initial band that I highlighted here, or the shaded area, was actually from the 23rd to the 26th of Feb, and that was that gap open there. So from there, I saw how this zone then, from the initial resistance, it then landed up becoming support, okay? And then we saw a break of that support. We see, and then I do use Bollinger Bands, so I use different technical indicators. So for the Bollinger Band on the daily, so this is the 20-day moving average, okay? And then this is basically 2 standard deviations above and 2 standard deviations below. When these bands widen, this means that there's more volatility, okay? So Bollinger Band as a gauge for me is really, really nice when looking at measures of dispersions or pretty much statistics, but through charts, just incorporating approaches. So if we see here, we've got that price gap there. And then once again, we see the pull back down to the lower bound of that Bollinger Band, and then the retracements. So this gives us a nice overview of potential support and resistance lines, as well as I do also use Fibonacci. But if we're looking at this price gap that I spoke about the other day, and this was from, you know, after Trump's victory, well, after the election. So that was the Friday close, and then that was the Monday open. We could see, obviously, that reshift or that shift in like the fundamentals. And then we saw Ethereum, they basically closed the prices, but, well, they didn't close the gap because the gap would have had to go there. So it retraced a portion of the gap, and then basically we saw the start of the uptrend. And this, to me, just solidifies this zone as an area of support. So that's 3030, just above the key psychological level of 3,000. So my perspective, well, basically, since then, we have seen Ethereum prices do relatively well. And now they're currently testing trendline resistance, and that is from that December high. But if I want to take a long position, this is the 20-day moving average. Once again, we've seen how it was prior support, turned resistance, and then now it's resistance again. If it breaks above here and above 3,400, then I am expecting a move up to 3,522, round about there. and then we can expect some bullish continuation. But we have had 3 consecutive days of gains, so that is good for Ethereum. But compared to the price moves and that we've seen in Bitcoin, it doesn't really compare. So now if we go to Doge, this has been my... When we talk about psychological trading, yeah, I'm taking a break from Doge. Yesterday, my setup was completely like bearish and everything. And then when I look, I'm like, maybe it's going to go up. So don't trade with maybes. If we look at Dogecoin, I think because I associate this with Elon Musk, I have been bullish. I'm still bullish, but following the price action, once again, we've had this. Okay, that was my last setup. It didn't work, so let's take this off. Okay, so what we've had is, once again, obviously, okay, throughout 2024, we don't see much happening. And then we get that election and we just see prices. And we've got the Department of Government Efficiency now. So we see prices break out back to a key zone of support. But immediately, well, nearly immediately, we see basically the return of bullish sentiment. And now we're back in this zone. So for now, I'll take my own advice. And you must remember, when it's threatening a line like this that has actually played, a significant role in prior price action, it's actually a warning zone. So to me, if I'm trading it now, well, I do have orders, but I would need to see a clear break of 0.34, basically above the zone of consolidation, and then maybe the potential for an upside move. But I can't rule down at the moment a further drawback. So we have seen prices, okay, so they took a bit of strain. That was, once again, Monday. We saw a lot of markets down. And then now they almost back to Monday levels, but not yet. So it hasn't quite shaken off that fear that we got from the beginning of the week. This week, well, today we're looking at inflation data out of the US. So it's core PCE data, which is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. With regards to crypto and volatility, I think the fact that we have survived this week is a plus. And that's just because of all the economic events and everything that we've had. So we had, as I said, really, really big earnings. We had Apple reporting, we had Tesla reporting, we had Microsoft the other day, and that's the magnificent, those are part of the Magnificent Seven. So we've also discussed the market cap, and why they're so important is because we're talking about companies that have valuations, single valuations, that are basically more than a lot of the world's GDPs. And actually, let's look at that. So this is why these companies matter. And what is good is that a lot of them are getting into blockchain. So once again, obviously, okay, NVIDIA is the chip stock. That's been AI darling. It has had a bit of pressure. But if you see there, the market cap is 3.05 trillion. So one company is nearly the same size as the whole of the crypto market. Once again, this matters because of their correlations and because of the fact that they're bound to have a future that's more intertwined. So those are themes that I think will continue to play out. A lot of our fundamentals are priced in now. Remember, we do have, okay, inflation data today, but we've now had the interest rate decision. So we know that interest rates are going to remain at the current levels. Tariffs, we have to wait and see if Trump actually acts on those tariffs. He says that, well, tomorrow is February, basically, and he wants to impose those tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Whether that can happen, we will need to see. So those are big risks to markets as a whole in terms of, fear drives markets. And so we just need to see how the whole risk sentiment plays out. But what we have seen and what's been good about crypto is that overall, what we've seen is we've had that resilience, and that's because of the changes in regulations and everything. But now we see prices that are stabilizing at, pretty, let's just do this. Ooh, no, not that. But we see prices that are stabilizing above, critical levels. If my chart actually worked. Okay. There we go. I'm trying to get the prices as well so you could see. But anyway, there we go. So just to see, so Ripple, we saw, okay, it's now at 3.0979. Ripple, we expecting to become a major part of, banks, and especially with regards to securing those transactions and just to keep it on a blockchain. So we've seen that benefiting. And before, prices really not too long ago, Ripple was at 1.08 or 1.8, and now it's above $3. Ethereum, it still hasn't managed to retest the December highs. When it does, I think maybe then we can consider alt season. For now, Ethereum still lagging behind Bitcoin. Today we see Bitcoin lagging a bit, and it's now below that 105,000 level. We might have some short-term pullback still in prices, but market cap is 2.07 trillion. Not too long ago, if you look at market cap, market cap alone has really, it's up 12%. So it just shows you. Okay, wait, is that? Well, that's year to date. That's just in January, basically. So if we have to look at, over 1 year, we can see those market caps and those valuations have really grown. So going into this week, what can we look out for? We've discussed the calendars. Let's look at the economic calendar. So we've got that inflation data, but what I did want to discuss or touch up on today as well, which I found interesting, is, okay, let's look here. So we've also had, remember, China has been quiet because they are celebrating Lunar New Year. So we now have on Monday, China markets coming back into the scene, and they've got their PMI data. So purchasing manufacturing index. Remember, this is important because it's based on a survey, but it's basically telling us the level of confidence, how confident the purchasing managing index is. So this is basically showing, okay, is China still optimistic about their manufacturing sector, which is their largest sector? And if we get something below the forecast, that's really bad. Not only for China, because it shows that they are expecting, the tariffs to actually knock the economy, but for risk sentiment as a whole, and that filters down. We've also got European Union. We've got the inflation. ECB just cuts interest rates. We've got job openings. This is going to be important as a measure of what's happening with the US job data, because now this comes in with the Fed policy and interest rates and so forth. And then we've also got the servicing sector, telling us like their level of confidence. Bank of England interest rate decision. So these are, and then the big risk is next Friday with non-farm payrolls. And that once again sheds light on the US economy. How this comes into crypto is because of the fact that now Trump is pushing for crypto adoption and he's wanting lower interest rates. He's setting a scene that was initially, well, it's been welcomed by crypto, but we need to see on the opposite end those risks as well. We've got Trump pushing very, very hard for tariffs and deportations. And then we've got the Federal Reserve really, really trying to get inflation down to the 2% target. And, so interest rates are remaining at current levels. But how this all comes into, how it intertwines and how it starts impacting each other starts to matter for the whole risk environment as a whole. So that's what I'm looking at in terms of the economic data. And then we've also got some big earnings next week. Remember correctly. So we've still got the earnings narrative, and we've still got, I think that's Amazon. Well, we've still got big earnings that are going to be reported next week. So I'll update you about that and exactly who's actually going to be reporting. That will be on Monday's presentation. But just the overall, environment. There we go. We've got advanced micro devices. So this is basically one of those that are linked to AI and NVIDIA. They're also going to be reporting earnings as well as Alphabet, so parent company of Google. So these are more of those, the whole like tech, fears and whatever. But what I've been looking at in terms of the earnings is to see or to gauge how these companies also plan to adopt the blockchain and the technology, especially with regards to developing their projects. And a lot of that is based on infrastructure for AI and tech, and blockchain plays a major role in that. So just going back to how we look for today, things are actually looking quite good. Okay, let's look at on the 4 hour. So we do have basically markets are trading a bit flat. I think digesting everything that's happened this week. But at the moment, everything's looking pretty decent. I think if we compare to where we were on Monday, I would say it's been quite a nice optimistic shift for the whole crypto environment. All right, well, I will be back on Monday. I hope everyone has an awesome weekend, and keep safe. Bye.